Welcome to Coffee Experts Club. Good to see everybody. If you're picking this up on the recording on the backside, great to not see you too. Just kidding. We wish you were joining us. It would be so magical, but because it's not, it's okay. Thank you for at least tuning in afterwards. Pretty excited about today's topic. We're talking about People 2.0. Yeah, we've been last month or so, we've been talking through finance. Finance can sometimes like bore folks, but I feel like, man, you better know your numbers, right? Like if you don't know your numbers, like there's one way to easily like screw yourself, and that's like don't know your numbers. So my greatest advice to anybody is, even though it's boring, even though it may not be what you want to look at, man, watch your numbers, make sure you understand your COGS, make sure you understand your payroll, make sure you understand how much net you have and why you have that as net, and keep an eye on those numbers. So I think that if you missed finance last month, check out the recordings in the membership area, members.coffeeexpertsclub.com. You can log in and get there. But this month, we're talking about People 2.0. So we've been talking about how this whole thing just builds with Coffee Experts Club. We've been setting some foundation with the 1.0s. We're moving up into some 2.0 stuff by way of communicating. And today, Ben, we're talking about communication. On the live, I was just on all the lives. I was just on all the lives talking earlier today about how this is one of the spots where it's like, if you're looking for someplace that can drain you faster than anything, drain your time, drain your energy, drain your everything, it's how your team is communicating with you, on the channels you're choosing to allow your team to communicate with you on, what kind of communication happens where, and just the sheer volume. You know, I know we talked to Lindsay a couple months ago and we were going through her delegate and elevate exercise live on the Coffee Experts. And she said, yeah, I spend about a half an hour in communication every day. And Ben's like, wait. Slow down. How long do you spend in communication every day? She's like, yeah, about a half hour. And he goes, I would challenge you the next week or so, really start tracking how much communication, you know, like how much communication is happening from your team towards you and how much you're interacting. And next time she joined us, she's like, oh my gosh, Ben was so right. I'm losing hours of my day every day to communication. And so today we're talking communication. Ben, anything you want to do to kick off, just framing up the conversation?
Yeah, communication, as my wife would say, is key. And it is extremely important.
don't take us into your marital conversations. I don't want to go into marital conversations.
Here's the thing. Me and my wife had a conversation last night. No, I would say not only is it as important as the act of you communicating to your team, that's really important, and that can be draining, and that can take a lot of energy, and that can take a lot of time. But even how your team is communicating back to you. Like, so how you're teaching your team how you want them to communicate to you, that back and forth, like if that's not set up and if there's not boundaries and there's not proper lanes and channels, like you can both be sucking each other's energy, and your people can't do their jobs correctly, they can't perform correctly, and you feel like you're getting overwhelmed. So it can just create a huge headache for both parties. If you don't sort of create lanes and simplify processes of communication and really have set as a standard what you want with your team, once you have that, the relationship's great and you never get an argument like me and my wife.
Woo! Ringer, Alyssa, I hope you're hearing. Like,
she's not here to rebut that statement at all.
Oh man, but I do think, you know, usually when you hear people talk about their communication channels, like the way they're texting, the way they're instant messaging, the way that they're doing their meetings, the way that they're running their projects, a lot of times when you hear people talk about it, they can almost talk about it like they've been taken hostage. You know what I mean? Like they have no control. Like it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much chatter. I don't even know what to do. Like there's so much noise, but it's like, no. It's about setting parameters. It's about setting framework. It's about teaching your people how you want them to communicate with you, because they're typically, your people are only over communicating because they want to keep you in the loop. But the more and more stores you multiply to, you know, the messier that gets if you don't create channels. I remember, you know, Roasters is obviously somebody we talk about a lot, and I think it was right around store 6 or 7, Wes was like, we got to get away from text. And I think, man, that was probably like 3 or 4 stores too late. Like, I think we should have gotten away from text a lot earlier than that. But, you know, we merged into some different tools. We're going to talk about those different tools here. But Wes was getting to a place where it's just like, I can't keep up. I can't track what people are asking me about. I lose track of what people are talking about. And then it's just like, if you want to stay keyed into everything, you're just getting blown up all day, every day. So anyway, we're going to talk about some of those things today. And Ben, you're going to lead the conversation, and then Drew and I are going to pipe in and interrupt you anytime that we feel like that would be cool. Once again, if you haven't been to Coffee Experts Club before, you're more than welcome to use the Slido link that Ben dropped in the comments, and you can ask us questions there. We'll make sure we circle around by the end, but you also can just straight interrupt us too. If there's spots where you're like, wait a minute, I have a question about that. Feel free to do that as well.
Yeah, I think to kick it off, the one thing you need to always remember is your people are going to mirror how you communicate with them.
Yeah.
So if you are the type of person to blow your people up constantly daily, expect them to do the same to you. And if you like that, that's great. But when you have 150 employees and doing that, you probably don't like it too much anymore. But so when you create these channels and create these parameters, just remember that if you stick with it and you constantly encourage your people, and this is how I communicate, they're going to mirror that, because they're gonna look at you and go, okay, this is how they're doing it. This is how they want it. I'm going to keep doing this. So just always keep that in mind. Really, I wanted to break it down into what I think are the three main areas of communication that'll happen in your business, which you probably have already realized. First, that's your daily communication. You know, is the shop burning down? Did we get robbed last night? Are you out cups? We need beans, that sort of stuff. That just, it has to happen on a daily basis, especially if you're not actually in the shop operating. If you're operating from afar, if you're a business owner who isn't working on bar, like there is that daily communication that you like Lindsay, you think might take 30 minutes a day, but really takes like 2 hours, 30 minutes a day.
Hey.
So there's the daily communication, there's project communication, you know, new shops opening up, new equipment being put in, new internet providers coming in, new internet providers are sucky, getting different internet providers, all sorts of communication around those projects. And then there's your meetings, like when you're getting together and sitting down with your team and going over goals, going over, you know, quarterlies, going over what's happening in the shops. So those three sort of silos of communication obviously are all going to happen somewhat differently. They can bleed together, but ideally you want to have parameters for each of those, so that my daily communication with my team stays efficient. My project communication is siloed from that daily communication, so it doesn't just get turned into a giant muddy mess. You're like, what were we talking about? What's even going on? And then you want your meeting communication to actually be effective. People leaving a meeting and going, okay, I need to do A and B by this date. Not leaving saying, were we supposed to do something? Did anybody write that down? Do we have notes? We're recording this. So keeping those communication silos effective is really going to be key in just helping your people, I would say, and helping your sanity for sure. So kicking off with daily communication, with coffee shop owners and operators, we live on our phones, right? I mean, all day, every day, it's phones everywhere. And like Aaron said, our default was for the longest time was text, and just text, you know, why isn't the shop open? The shop got robbed last night. Just text. It's great in an emergency.
Like coffee orders, like people need more beans,
yep.
like every kind of communication could possibly happen. Yeah.
All in an iOS message, and it's just like blue bubbles for days, which is great, I suppose, if you have one stand and you have one person you're talking to. But once you start multiplying, that is just it gets ineffective really fast, especially like if you're that owner operator who's got 4 stands, 4 managers, 4 assistant managers, and your phone's getting blown up all the time. I would always resort to text as like the last possible thing when it comes to daily communication. Most of all for the fact that you can't really archive and sort through and search those. I mean, you can, but not easily. What we moved to at Roasters pretty quickly was WhatsApp. It's universal. It's an iOS and an Android app. It's free. Everybody can get it. There's a really nice interface when it comes to sending multimedia messages. I don't know if you know anybody who has Android like me, you can't send a video very well from an iPhone. It comes out just like this garbled mess, and you're like, what? You're trying to show me a piece of the machine's missing, and it's like this. It's like a pixel big. WhatsApp's really good with that. And so I recommend if you've got like 2 shops, 3 shops, under 5 shops, WhatsApp's really simple. It's free. And like I said, if you need to send those media messages, which we used to do all the time, me and Drew used to send back and forth all the time. Like, what's wrong with this? I don't know. Can you just send me a video from underneath the machine really quick? I can actually see what's going on. Great for an owner operator. If you can't like run down to the shop at 5 a.m., just send me a video, please. What's wrong? Oh yeah, the machine's not turned on. So highly recommend WhatsApp. There's other platforms, like with the Collab team, we use Voxer a lot. That's also because I think in our line of business, we're much less hands-on, we're much more talking through things, and Voxer has a really good, its default is audio communication, which I honestly really like a lot more than texting. I can just like, hey, and talk to you about it instead of having to wait.
Yeah.
And if you're Aaron, you can listen to it at like 2x, which
that's the best part about Voxer is you can go all the way up to 4x on the speed. So somebody's talking to you, you're like 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, I can listen to you now. But
okay,
already a fast talker, it just doesn't work, because then you're like, no, I already talk at 4x. So if you try and go 4x, it's like 16x. Okay.
Yeah. And then there's also email, but I mean, in the coffee industry, I mean, most of the things like I said, you're daily communicating with are like, I need this solved in an hour tops. And most of your employees are under the age of 23, so email is like, it's not going to happen. Let's be honest. It's just that you're not gonna email an 18-year-old and get a response back anytime soon.
Right.
So really, my 2 recommendations when it comes to daily communication is either Voxer or WhatsApp. They really are, they're the simplest, the easiest, the fastest for those emergency situations. And you get the most bang for your buck out of them, the fact that they're free.
Can I insert a funny story here? And those of you who are wondering about Slack, Ben is going to hit that here in a minute, because I know some people on this call use Slack. We're going to talk about it here in a second. But the best part, I think, about moving from just a standard iOS texting, whatever your texting scenario is, to something like WhatsApp, I think is the way to segment it. I mean, that you can segment the different groups. So maybe I don't want to steer your thunder. If you're going to go to that next, but then I've got a funny story to tuck into it after you talk about that.
Yeah, just breaking up on our WhatsApp. I mean, I had a WhatsApp list that was about 30 long, but it was like, this is shop 1, this is shop 2, this is shop 3, and it's not like, here's employees 1 through 100. Hey guys, happy Monday. And then all of a sudden it's like ding, 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 ding. Everybody's replying like, no, this is not what I wanted.
Yes. Oh man. But we even segmented even beyond just the stores, right? We got to a point where it was like, we had tech channels for the stores, and then only those tech guys were on that channel. But you want different things to be communicated to different kinds of people, but you don't want everybody to receive that text. Otherwise you're literally burning hours for across the organization by everybody's notification going off every couple of minutes to hear about things that have really no impact on them. So we would sliver out a tech conversation. We slivered out a roastery side of things where the beans were being dropped off and deliveries were happening. We peeled that off, and those 3 or 4 people were in that group plus the managers. So there was different communication levels that you could have with each one of the different stores and segment them out. But also the funny story about that I was going to tell was, for a season there, Wes wanted Ben to be included in on all the tech communication. So Ben was the kind of guy, like, Ben's running ops, 150 people deep, 16 stores, right? Like, Ben doesn't want, and Ben's like a low communicator anyway, right? Ben's like, I want to communicate when we have to talk. And if we don't have to talk, I'd rather us just not talk. Is that okay? And like, that's not going to hurt Ben's feelings. You don't talk to Ben for 4 years. He's okay. He's going to love you the same. He actually loves you more. You know what I mean? Because you haven't talked for 4 years. But anyway, when Wes asked Ben to be added in, that like multiplied all of Ben's channels by like 16. So Ben like just was getting just so blown up, every single thing that broke down every single time. And Ben has no interaction with that. It's not like he's going to show up at a store and fix a grinder that's got a screw that got lodged in the burr. Like, that's not going to be Ben's jam. The steam wand stops working. Ben's not going to deal with that. So it was so annoying to Ben that Wes asked him, what do you do when the boss asked you into it? And the day that Wes said, yeah, Ben, you can go ahead and turn that off, Ben was like, thank God. Gone. Out of those channels. But
it was absolutely, it's even worse when you're like, all right, I've got 4 hours blocked out to do payroll right now. I've got to like make sure everything's correct. And your phone's just like buzz, 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 buzz. Like, I hope this is important. It's not. I hope this is important. It's not important. So that's that can be, again, the downfall too of, again, going back to those parameters. Like, these are my communication lanes. Like, as an owner operator, I don't need to be in the barista latte art channel.
Yeah.
Like, that they send pictures back and forth to them too. That's great. Like, you may want to jump in and be like, hey guys, just to show some support, but you're going to be blowing up your phone. That's not a communication lane that you need to be in. Don't do that to yourself because you want to be like the friendly boss. That's great. Jump in, say hi, then leave the channel. So you can actually get some work done during the day too.
That is a cool part, that you can come and go, that you can
Yep, come and go on the groups.
Add it in, take your stuff out. I mean, obviously you can do it with text too, but you can mute channels for windows of time. You can select how long you want that channel muted. So you can create some good boundary for yourself. But I think also one of the cool things about WhatsApp is broadcast, right? You want to talk about that a little bit, Ben?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you can create broadcast channels and add people to them and create a view. It's basically a view only channel. So I can send it out to, and we did create this a couple times where it's all the employees are in this channel. They can view it. We can send out a, hey everybody, don't forget Chris's party is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. And they can just view it. They can't reply back again, because if they do, your phone's getting blown up with 150 pings. But it's a really easy way to get that message out quickly, efficiently, and it's just like that's it. It's broadcast. It's a bulletin board. They read it and it's gone. And of course, another great thing too is those read receipts too. So if your machine has blown up and you're texting, in your tech feed, and you're like, hey, tech guy, can you come down here and fix my machine? And he doesn't read it for like 2 hours. You're like, oh shoot, well, it's probably not happening today. Or if he does read it and then goes back to sleep, you'd be like, come on, bro.
That's right. Blow them up.
Blow them up. Yes. So I really recommend those two. I also recommend whichever you use, and this is probably something you have to communicate more with on a team or team basis, because it's going to be different. Whichever of these platforms you pick for your daily communication, I highly recommend that you keep it completely different or completely separate from what your people and you use to communicate with the outside world. So like your friends and your family. Like if you text with your friends and your family, choose a different scenario like WhatsApp to use for work. The whole reason behind this, actually a couple of reasons, is you want to silo out your work communication and my home communication. And the same thing for your people. So if your team is like, look, we all use WhatsApp to communicate with our friends and family. Okay, let's use Voxer, or vice versa. Main reason is our phones are constantly getting blown up with notifications. If you're inside the same app that they're using to communicate with all of their friends, all of their family, you have a higher chance of just getting lost in that noise with all of these notifications coming in all day long. So if you can get on a different app that pings a different notification, they go, okay, this is work. This is important. I should probably check this, or not. It doesn't get stuck in the other 10 text messages they have with their buddies for going out, this Saturday night or whatever it is, maybe. So super important to pick it for that. And also it just helps create a good work home life balance. It helps segment that. The minute you start, where your people starts going through their text messages and they see, oh, friend, do this Saturday. Oh, friend, do that Saturday. Oh, boss, shit. Like it starts, it's really subtle, but it starts sort of diffusing that line between this is work communication and this is home communication. And they start seeing you as the boss or the owner constantly coming up amongst their friends and family. They're going to feel a sort of encroachment onto their home life or their outside work life. And then you start getting to this weird sort of like, I always have to communicate with my boss. I'm always talking to my boss. I never have home time. So I highly recommend picking something completely different than what your people use to talk to their friends, their family. It helps a lot in that sense. It helps keep up more positive morale, especially when you keep that work home life balance, but really, I guess, in a positive level. I don't know, you like Voxer, Aaron, so I'm guessing you've found that for a reason.
So I would say there's different ways to communicate with different things. I would say I try, and this is just my own personal jam, I try and not project out to people based upon Voxer. Like Voxer is more my conversational piece to get to a decision, and then I'll push out project data different ways, like someplace that's actually where it's written out, people understand what I'm asking for, rather than the downside to Voxer. Or I know I had a client for a while that tried to use Marco Polo as their main medium, where it's like all video, like Voxer does, but through video. The downside is the stuff like that, you have to go back and watch and listen again, instead of being able to at a glance read through. So I think I try and keep out of the weeds of, if I'm trying to get down to very fine level detail and I'm going to ask somebody something based upon that, I try and capture that someplace else. But the conversation that leads up to it, I'll have on a medium like Voxer, where we can have back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then I'll say, awesome, I'll shoot you an email. Awesome, I'll drop a project request in Asana. Awesome, I'll Slack you over the details or whatever it is. I'll try and keep conversation between Voxer, and then anything that there's actual details that I'm going to actually have an ask around, I really personally try to not let that kind of conversation happen over Voxer, because then I lose track of the ask too. So anytime I've asked somebody to do something, I try and always make sure that's someplace that I can go back and track. Where did I ask that? Voxer, you end up 15 back and forths deep. You may have asked something on the third one that you have to go listen through 12 just to figure out what was the ask, and did Ben get back to me on that? And so that's kind of a rule of thumb that I would recommend for a medium like Voxer.
Yeah, and that is a great segue. That was fantastic, Aaron.
Wait. Before you segue, don't let me segue too far. Drew, I wanted to get your word on daily communication. Ben was top of the organization, director of all operations. He's got a different vantage point. But for you, like managing huge volume locations and then moving to a place of regional over 7, regional over 4, where they pared you down to, what are some of the architecture of channels that you saw from a store perspective? Because I think it helps us all to kind of see how different businesses work, and it might be good to like put some ideas in people's brains on different modes of communication.
Yeah, I mean, we leaned really hard into WhatsApp, but it was just so convenient and nice because of all the control you can have. Like you said, you can mute conversations at certain times of day for certain periods of time. You can add and remove people. You can make sure certain people can't respond, or you can make sure people do respond with certain types of things. We would subgroup lots of things. Yeah. So a subgroup for a fun chat for the store, because it's it's a nice thing to provide a platform for people to come together as people rather than just as coworkers. Yeah. And you create the group as a manager and then peace out so that they have that group. Or you could stay in there. I know one of the regionals really liked being involved in those chats, but like Ben said, it just goes off. Those chats have no boundaries of time frames. Ben was good at boundaries because, I'd be like, all right, it's 5:01. Like, maybe he'll answer me. Let me ask him this question real fast. And I'm sure he read it and thought it wasn't important enough to answer, because it happened often. But boundaries are super important. And, creating that infrastructure where people have somewhere to communicate when they don't feel like, it's too late to communicate because they have a fun chat. It's just really healthy to set those, like Ben called them, silos, or else, the people, it just eventually it's just noise, and the people they don't read the messages. They don't care for the messages, and they do happen all the time.
I do think that there were also channels, I remember, Drew, where like the managers talked with the managers, right? That he was involved in, but like sometimes it was like their secret channel, right? They didn't want any of us to know about, but they had that conversation where they communicate back and forth. And it's like, that's okay. Like let them have tools that help them, you know what I mean? But I think that just the ability to break out different communications, assistants talking with assistants, if there's like similar duties that they want to just ask questions from each other. So you're able to create like peer level like communication channels and then upper level communication channels. So
well, one thing that was nice about getting, like, I was in the manager chat for years until I became a regional, and then I just left it because I didn't want to be in there, because most of the things didn't involve me, but it creates a incentive for them. Like, we would track things like how much product gets borrowed between stores, and ding the managers, because that's their job to make sure that doesn't happen. So the managers would have their chats probably where a little bit of spillover would happen, but that's fine, because then it incentivizes them to make sure that that's not happening, because it does ding their incentives. But yeah, it's good to, I think it helps them be creative and make sure that they can share ideas without having to ask us and feel stupid. Yeah. Even though, of course, there's no dumb questions, but sometimes you're afraid to ask a question in a group chat with a bunch of your peers and your leaders. So creating that culture of them being able to ask and bounce ideas off of each other was really beneficial.
That's good.
I like that.
Okay, Ben, that's all right. You can move on. Now segue.
What a greght segue, Drew, into
incredible
project communication. So I'll take us on a field trip while we're doing
I love field trips.
Field trips. So a lot of companies and a lot of businesses use Slack because it's an easy one to jump into. The reason why I don't necessarily like it as a daily communication tool is, especially if we're talking about like the barista level, it's a lot more difficult to whip a phone out of your pocket really quick and text, "I'm out of vanilla syrup," in a Slack channel. Like there's a few steps, a few processes you have to go to get that emergency message out versus like WhatsApp or, you know, a text message like we used to do, or even Voxer. I like Slack more at the project level, or maybe communication in the upper level, maybe the management and higher level, because you're talking about people who aren't on bar serving customers right now. They have a little bit more time to maybe attach a file, attach a video, attach a PDF that needs to be pushed out. And it's not so much like I need to communicate in the moment, because if you're using communication in Slack as like an in the moment communication, your Slack's going to turn into a dumpster fire really quick too. Like you'll have channels, you're like, my Slack's set up so great, you got all these different channels, everything's everywhere, and then everyone's just like in general going help, tagging people, help, and you're like, this is useless, let's just go back to WhatsApp. But as project communication, I like it really as sort of like an intro into maybe a project management tool. We'll go over Asana here in a second too. You can segment it out and drop those files in, like Aaron was saying, like, here's what needs to be happening. I'm thinking about it now. I'm going to shoot a Voxer over and say, hey, Drew, I need this file like ASAP. I'm talking to a client here in about an hour. Can you get that over to me and just drop it in Slack? And then Drew can hear that and then go into Slack, tag me when he needs dropping it in, and I have a place where I can pull it up really easily. Great thing about Slack too is it's free. Like, again, these platforms, they're free. There's obviously upgrades that you can upgrade into, but with it being free, you're not, you know, as a small coffee shop, you've got 2 or 3 shops, you're not paying for a tool that, you know, you're not getting the most out of at that point. But just a couple examples in here, you know, new locations, new location 2, construction, new location 2, construction. I can create these channels and I can add people as needed to these channels. If Drew's a regional for location 1, he doesn't need to be added to new location 2, because again, I don't want to be overburdening him with communication and have his phone going off all day long when me and Aaron are talking about the new location 2 construction. Like, it's again trying to like not overburden your people, which in the same sense is going to help you, because if I do add Drew to this, then when we start talking, Drew's going to start responding because he thinks I want him to be responding because I'm talking to him now. So all of a sudden he's responding back with things, and my phone's blowing up even more because he's responding to me. And again, we've lost the boundaries of the parameters we've set for our communication. Yeah. So keep it efficient. I'm only going to add Drew to what he needs to be added to. If he thinks he needs to be added to it, then sure, I can add it to him. I can go in here and just drop Drew in and add his email. And then again, just like WhatsApp, we're keeping conversations with the correct people in the right channels, and we're keeping everything organized. I mean, really, all of this is about organization. Yeah. And if you can start with good organization, it's a lot easier to do that and sort of clean up as you go than to just start with a dumpster fire and try to put the whole thing out and start something new. But if I were to go in here, we're talking about new location construction, I can come in, I can create a feed, you know, and just start building plans. And then if I want to come in here and start talking to people about those building plans, I can reply in this thread, and I can start talking to my contractor if I've added him to my Slack, to all of my guys that are going to be working in this new location construction. Everything gets kept here, and it's easily searchable. I can easily find what that file was. I can go construction file, and it'll search through all these threads or search through just this thread. So it's really good in that sense, where I can place my files, place my plans, place my ideas, and even line out what I want to happen there. And everybody can go back and find things easily, versus like Aaron was saying, if you're dropping stuff on WhatsApp, people have to scroll for ages to try and find that one thing. What was that one thing? Where was the front door key? Shit, where did they put the front door key? Where did they put the front door key? And up here, you can just go in and go front door key and sort of search for it. What do you know? It's probably in here somewhere. I can go and look for it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's good.
Any feedback on Slack, Aaron? I know we've used it for quite a few clients, and we've seen our fair share of dumpster fires.
For sure. I think a little bit of intention at the beginning goes a long way with something like Slack. Like, you don't want 55,000 different channels. Like, figure out what the best amount of communication is, and naming conventions is the other thing. I would say, if it's a product that you're talking about, like put product and then the name of that product, and then like that way, when you look in that left bar, it's all going to organize it by product. Or if it's project, like it's project based, or if it's location dash, Richland, what I mean, or whatever it is. That way your whole left bar is organized, and it's a little bit cleaner to track through and follow. Otherwise, if you just let anybody start channels, so I would say be really clear on who's allowed to start a channel. And that may seem like you're being Nazi with your Slack channel, but I would just say that keeps it from getting super scrambly on how people are naming things, who's allowed to just, not anybody can just start a channel willy-nilly and it's all over the place. And you're like, what the, I don't even know where we're supposed to be communicating about it. Being very intentional at the beginning. Taryn said something really smart the other day on a call I was on. Leave it to Taryn to say something smart. But he said, I would always advocate for spending a couple hours at the beginning, even if it's going to take you a couple hours, realizing it's going to save you so much more than a couple hours downstream. I mean, it's so easy for us just to get into, let's do it now, let's just get it up, let's start communicating, and then not put the intentionality in around architecture, and then wonder why 3, 6 months, 12 months down the road, the whole thing is a disaster because we didn't start with intentionality at the beginning. I would say the other thing I would recommend out of Slack is archive channels that are no longer in use. Like, if we're not using a channel and it hasn't served us well, or maybe it was super date specific, maybe it was around like a grand opening. We have a grand opening channel and we want a grand opening channel, and then that grand opening comes and goes, archive the channel. You can always bring it back out of archive, but man, don't let it clog up your daily workflow on the left-hand side with having tons of channels that are unnecessary. So I would say, and then the final thing would be, you're going to have to educate people on how Slack works communication wise, because it doesn't just work like text. Ben showed you peeling off threads. That was one of the things that drove me nuts about Slack out of the gates was I can't just respond like I would a text, because people think, vertically with text. You say this, I respond this, you say this, I respond this. In Slack, it works left to right, so it's somebody says this, if you want to speak to that, you need to hit thread, pop it out just like Ben did there and is showing you there, and then you can talk vertically, but you want to turn them into threads. Otherwise, it just turns into the same mess that you might get out of a WhatsApp, where everybody's talking over everybody and it's hard to identify what was the topic we're talking about here. So Slack is, in my mind, next level elevation to project-based work, things that can be topic-based that you can talk details around. This would be the place I would say try and capture details. But then there'll also will be a migration at some point downstream. We're going to move away from Slack as that vehicle and truly leave it as just your instant messaging tool. And that would be when you elevate up to a project management tool. So I don't know if that teases where you want to go next.
What a great segue, Aaron. Talking about
like I knew where you wanted to go.
Asana is what we use when it comes to tasking out projects. This is if you're leveling up from Slack and you want somewhere where you can drop in SOPs. If I create a closing list and I want to task out to my closer, okay, I need you to do A through F, mop the floors, put the chairs up, then mop the floors actually. Turn the open sign off, clean the machine, empty out the ice bin, all of these steps, I can create it in Asana. And then any new closer who ever comes in, I just tag them in this task, and they've got all the steps. And I can even assign it to that closer, or I can assign, if I'm a regional manager, I can assign my manager checking their people's payroll every 2 months. I can set a recurring task. I can come in here and if we just create a new task right up here, that's not as fun to look at. Let's go to my task. I'll add a task here. I can't see because my little section's in the way. Where's it going at?
Yeah, the pictures are always great. I love it.
I can't see past all your faces. We'll go through this way. There we go, that's better. Add a task. I can create, closing duties for myself or add anybody else, and I can just create a description. I can drop in a loom, I can drop in that step-by-step. I can create subtasks inside this project, and I can set it as recurring, so it pops up every 2 weeks. And every time it comes up, that person has to then complete it. I get a notification that's been completed. They get a little smiley face for completing it, and it's a way of assigning out these projects and making sure that you have the accountability of getting them done from your people. A task that is, let's go through an example here. Collab Team bandwidth report. This is a task that Aaron has me do every 2 weeks for us. And he's just created a title. I'm the user, so it's assigned to me, and he's created subtasks for me. And these are basically my SOP steps in how to create this project that he's giving me. It's giving me a tutorial on how to do it, the asset that I need to get it done. And now as a team member, I don't have to remember like every 2 weeks, what was that thing that I'm supposed to do for Aaron every 2 weeks? What's that thing that he asked me to do? He sent me a Voxer about it, reminded me about it. What was that thing? It just pops up every 2 weeks. I need to go through these steps, and then I can complete it. Aaron gets a notification. He's happy. I'm happy. Nobody drops the ball, and we can just move on to the next project. It's very streamlined, very efficient. Again, the great thing about Asana is it's free for what, 10 users, 15 users?
15. Yeah, they give you 15.
Yeah. So this, I mean, you may not use this in a, barista level project tool, obviously. There'd be, especially with how much turnover you have in the shops, it'd be hard to keep maybe the closers, like I was saying, on top of this all the time. But if you're a regional manager tasking stuff down to your management team, this is a great tool to use just in keeping that transparency for when they're finishing their projects. Obviously, if you're an operator, keeping your upper level management inside Asana whenever you're tasking things out to them. Owner operators, visionaries have great ideas, but the execution of those ideas when it comes to like getting your person to do that is usually the missed step, where they have a great idea. They're like, I want to, put some Christmas lights up at store 5. Yeah. And they just send that message up and they go, I hope you do that. And you go, I hope I remember what it was supposed to be done by, and I hope I know how to do it. And I hope I know where to get the Christmas lights. And I hope I know all this. If you could say, I want to get Christmas lights up at this location, let me drop it in as an asset, who you need to talk to, who you need to call to get them put up, where they're located. You need to put the nails in the side of the building. You need to string them up here. And then it's just like, you can set it there, set a date on it, say, by December 22nd, and you're basically helping whoever you're tasking to actually do the job correctly and get it done. And then it gets done. Everybody's happy.
Can you tell Drew that Ben was only asked like once or twice to have Christmas lights? Drew's like, let me tell you what the steps are on Christmas lights. How they're efforts every single year on every location.
But what happened was I was asked to do it once, and I was like, I don't know where those Christmas lights are. I'm sorry. And they're like, okay, we'll ask her to do it actually instead.
Oh man, Drew and Jarek saving the day every year.
Every year. But highly recommend it, again, for those project-based stuff. This is sort of the intermediary level up from Slack. And then you can go super hardcore into the hardest of the hardcores, and that's Smartsheets. Good old Smartsheets. Aaron's favorite tool. This when it comes to Smartsheets, and you guys have all seen this, this is the 5-star new locations. This is for that project. This is like your quarterly project, your new location. This is the project that's going to have a lot of working aspects, a lot of rotating this and moving that and ordering this. I'm talking to this person, contractors, city, state. I've got 30 players going on in this with multiple tasks. This is what you want to use that Smartsheets for, where it's really detailed. I need to know exact dates when things are starting, when things are ending. I can't open my shop until I get the health department to sign off on that. So I need to know exactly when the health department is coming, when they've come, if it's been completed, then I can move on to the next step. And that's where this very detailed sort of project management tools come into play. Asana, I really recommend for those tasks that are 10 steps in a way to SOP that out. Really, when you're coming into a project like opening a new location and you've got 107 lines, you really want something like a smart sheet to help you finish that out. I don't know.
That's
Maybe
good.
Aaron, you could talk about smart sheets a little bit more and how effective it is or ineffective. Maybe some things that you do or don't like about it.
Sure. And I think, guys, as we talk this over, realize this, and like probably let me, because Ben and I can nerd out on this stuff for days. So like we should probably like take a little hot air out of the room of like, let's calibrate things a little bit. So coffee shops typically are pretty low tech. You know what I mean? Like the people that are working there are usually craft-based people, which means they're probably not super computer-based people. Otherwise, they'd be doing computer-based work. They like something about the texture of working with people, working with a craft product, like creating that perfect cup of coffee, putting that out a window. That brings them some sort of fulfillment and joy. What I've noticed is people that are good at that don't do super excellent when you take everything digital. You know what I mean? So I think that as we give you these tools, realize there's like a base level employee, like Ben was saying, like your baristas, where I would say try not to get too complex on the way you're trying to communicate with them. Otherwise, you're going to leave them in the dust. You're going to be frustrated. They're going to be frustrated. But as people begin to elevate, probably start thinking through how you're elevating through your tools. Like because somebody comes up to your assistant manager level, maybe you start including them in more groups. Most people are okay with like a text-based system. So WhatsApp, whatever, you can get all your baristas in there, but assistants start coming up. So you start peeling them off, and there are multiple groups now that they're in the middle of. As managers, even more accountability that's there, and then maybe as you elevate up into like a regional, maybe you need that check and balance of, hey, we need to move into a more complicated communication system where we can, there can be more coming and going, more expectation. I'm expecting you to elevate as you elevate up within the company, and I'm going to therefore graduate you into more and more tools. And then as you get more and more towards the top, I mean, Ben was the top of the food chain, you know what I'm saying? So it was like, of course, Ben's got his hands in all of these different moving pieces and tools, but typically I would say just be careful what your expectation is as it cascades down through your company, because otherwise you're setting yourself up for frustration. That being said, I was at a real crossroads of decision when we started using Asana, because we had started with Smartsheet because I'm a sheets-based person. I like spreadsheets. I think spreadsheets are cool. I think they're sexy. I could look at them all day. But what you find is that not everybody likes spreadsheets as you get out into your organization. Some people like boards. I mean, where they can organize and move things around based upon columns where they're shifting and shuffling duties. Some people like more like the tasks that subtask out the way Asana does it. So for me, there's all different kinds of project management tools out there. Trello and I mean, there's so many that are out there that we could list off. Where we landed was Asana was great for task-based stuff. For sure, you can still do project management in there at a larger level too. But that's why we've kind of meshed back into a Smart Sheets combo, is where we need to start phasing things over long stretches of time that are going to involve multiple different people and different attachments and different details. That's usually where I'll shift to a sheets-based project management tool like Smart Sheets, because like Ben said, then it reads very linearly, top to bottom. I can assign things out. The nice thing about Smart Sheets for me is that all those sub lines can be retractable into a primary line. I can assign like attachments to things. I can let certain people see certain fields. So if I only want my contractor to tell me how we're doing on the progress for our construction plan, I can actually ask him that from Smart Sheets, and it comes into his email inbox. He can respond in that form, and it populates back into my Smart Sheet. So I don't need to give him complete visibility. It gives me a lot of control of who I can ask for things from. So me as a project manager, I like it for phase-based work. I can turn this whole thing into a Gantt if I want people to see it in Gantt view rather than grid view, where it will line out for folks based on dates, contingencies on what needs to happen first. This whole sheet is super smart that Ben's showing you, because you can populate a core date in, and it's going to shoot dates through the rest of your sheet based upon the dependencies that are tucked into those lines. So I would say it just depends on what you're looking for and what you're wanting to do. I would say though, don't have an expectation of a lot of people loving Smartsheet.
Yeah.
I mean, like that, it really, Smartsheet was me and Ben. Me and Ben lived in Smartsheet a lot when we were opening up new locations. But we'd always have to do like main meetings, where we would actually fill in details for other people. And that's probably something to talk about at some level too, Ben. I don't know if you're going to wind up conversation there before we get into questions for maybe 4 minutes, maybe talk about meetings and maybe how meetings play into communication.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the easiest way to think about it is leveling up your tool and your people sort of in the same sense or same level, I guess. You're using your baseline tools of daily communication with your lower tier employees, not that they're low tier, but lower criticality.
Yep.
And as you're leveling up into managers and regionals where those projects are becoming more and more critical, I'm leveling up that tool to make sure that I have visibility, that I can track what's going on, I got transparency on what's happening. And as I'm leveling up now into projects that are like utmost criticality, if this project goes sideways, I have 300K that's just gone. Like that's a really critical project.
Yep.
I want a tool that's going to mirror how critical that project is and the players, the key players who are working on that project. So yeah, kind of like Aaron said, we're segmenting up as the tool is required with the same people. But yes, moving into meetings. So this is projects based. Lastly is your meeting communication, which is as important as the rest of these, right? If you're having meetings, then you should be having meetings with your people on a semi-regular basis. If your people are coming away from those meetings going hip hip hooray and that's it, then that's not really an effective meeting.
And you love it. You love it when the main guy shows up and just talks the whole time, right? And like you walk out and you're like nothing got decided, no deliverables were given, like nobody knows what they're supposed to be doing, but the main guy felt good because it was cathartic. You love those.
Yeah, those cathartic meetings for the CEO where they go, I'm glad I saw all of you and told you to do a better job. See ya. And we all go, so how are we supposed to do a better job? Meetings, I take that back. Culture meetings are great. If it's a meeting like I'm going to sit down and have lunch with my folks, lunch with my managers, lunch with my team because I want to build culture, that's great. You don't need any sort of parameter around that because it's just for saying hi. But if we're talking about like a meeting on a project or like a bi-weekly like check-in on the shops meeting, if you don't have some sort of structure in place to how that meeting gets recorded, how deliverables come out of it, and how we keep or hold those people accountable who are supposed to bring those deliverables back, then you're just shouting into the wind over and over and over again. And as a visionary and owner, you're probably gonna get frustrated because you're like, I talk so much to these people, I see them every 2 weeks, nothing ever gets done. And everybody and your people are getting frustrated because like we don't know what we're supposed to do. We come and we eat lunch and we feel good, but we don't know what happens after that. So we use the EOS model with Collab Team. A lot of our clients, we recommend it because it's a very simple, structured model. Really, it comes down to we come together, we talk to each other, we bring in issues that have come up over the week, things that may not be emergencies, but we can see a pattern that need to be fixed. A large issue that needs all of our brain power to kind of collectively talk about. We record these issues, we go through the details, talk about how we think they could be fixed, what possible solutions are, and then we take that and we assign it to one person. And we say, okay, Ben, you brought up the fact that you hate texting, you think we should all move to Voxer. We're going to assign it to you now to go then and create a company account. And when we come back next week, you've created the account and you're going to give logins to everybody. Mm-hmm. So next week, when it comes up, we were like, what were we all talking about? I was like, I don't know. I didn't. Oh, yeah, Ben, you were supposed to create an account. Did you do that? No. And then we can all go, oh, dang, Ben, that's the third time you've not done anything after this meeting. But again, it creates that accountability so that things are actually getting done. CEOs have a really big habit of coming in and just, I mean, it's part of who they are. It's part of their personality. It's part of what they do is they come in and they cast vision. They say, you guys are awesome. And that usually ends up taking an hour and a half. And you've got 10 minutes at the end of it to go, okay, what do we need to talk about, guys? He's leaving. If you sort of set this structure at the gate, you can always be getting things done. And I also, on top of that, would say use the same format over and over and over and over again so that everybody comes in, they go, okay, this is what we're doing. We've got an hour. We're going to knock it out. I'm going to come back next week and talk about all the things that we finished up.
No, that's good. I think like most people start with agenda, but it's so easy to get off agenda. I would just say the key take homes for set up a consistent meeting, whether it's weekly or bi-weekly, move through the same style of agenda, however you're doing it. I would recommend some key metrics that you're watching. EOS is Entrepreneur's Operating System. Gino Wickman's book Traction is what it's taken from, but it's just the same format. You come in, you talk some good at the beginning with each other. You go over some key metrics that everybody should be documenting and watching so you can see how the company's shifting and moving. You move into some big rocks so that you know how, where we're trying to get to by the end of the year. And then you suss out issues at the end that turn into deliverables that people have to bring back answers on in 1 week later. So I think it's cool just to have a framework. And I would really encourage you to put into a framework what you're doing your meetings through. And we're going to talk about that in more detail in the weeks to come. Thank you, Ben, for going through all this.